Oh, that cracked me up. It felt like Perk there was like the preacher and Swaggy was like the congregation. Just like repeating exactly what he said. Tomase, I thought you were at Fenway Park for the big Brewers Sox series. Okay, you're at home, looks like. Are the Celtics disrespecting John Tomase? Are they disrespecting Jaylen Brown? Like, is Perk right? They have to trade him.
No, I don't understand this. It's like, a lot can happen in 2 years. If the Celtics go out with Jaylen Brown and win a title next year, which, by the way, they are favored to do by the odds makers, I think Jaylen Brown may have a very different opinion on Boston. Things that happen now in the heat of the moment. He even said it himself right now. Yes, in the heat of the moment, I'm sure Jaylen Brown is not happy. And frankly, I don't blame him for that as a human being. But big picture, guys, I mean, 2 years is a long time. I don't know why we have to like shove Jaylen Brown out the door just weeks after he was on his way to being finals MVP if the Celtics had been able to hold on in game 4.
I don't think the Celtics are disrespecting Jaylen Brown because I just can't imagine, Trenni, that these conversations are not happening behind the scenes, that Jaylen Brown is just scrolling on Twitter and then he sees these reports and he's like, oh, wait, they want to trade me? They're putting me in a package? Like, I cannot believe that that's a situation that Jaylen Brown is going through. But I think that, again, he is looking at all the news around the trade rumors, and I feel like that's where he feels like he's disrespected, where people are looking at it and saying, okay, yeah, whatever, trade Jaylen Brown away and bring in Kevin Durant. He's not as good as a player as Kevin Durant. I think that's what he's looking at, and I think that's where he feels disrespected.
And Tomase, I think all of that, too, also stems back from, like, when he was drafted, right? And everybody booed the pick. Nobody wanted him. They didn't think he was great. He's always been the 1B to Jason Tatum's 1A. And I think that's where, if he's feeling disrespected, I'm not so sure it's directly from, like, Brad Stevens and Ime Udoka and the people within the Celtics organization. I think it probably, as Amina said, has a lot more to do with just he feels disposable by the people of Boston and the city of Boston, which, to your point, could very easily change if they make a run to the finals. But should he, with that all said, you know, if he's never going to be embraced here, and if he does want to be the guy, do you really blame him for maybe not wanting to be here anymore? And do the Celtics have to take that into consideration, Amina?
I think Jaylen Brown wants to be here. I think he really did. Honestly, contrary to popular belief, I think that a lot of people want him to stay in Boston. Every time I'm looking at fans and what they're saying, and of course, Twitter sometimes is a good gauge, sometimes it's a bad gauge, but I really feel like the temperature of fans, they do not want to trade Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant. And to everyone in the outside world, that sounds absolutely insane, who, you know, are fans of other fan bases, other teams around the NBA. But here in Boston, I think people really want him to stay, and I think Jaylen Brown wants to stay. I think it's the outside disrespect that's really getting to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's Tomase, if you think about it, even in this building, it's really split, right? Like, there is a big camp of people here who want Jaylen Brown to stay, but I think it's just natural for a human being to hear all of the negative and bottle that up rather than hear the people who are fighting for him to stick around.
Yeah, I mean, I want to push back on the idea that he's more upset with outside noise than internal noise. You know, the whole shaking my head tweet right after the Woj and Shams reports, that was about the Celtics offering him to the Nets for Kevin Durant. I think if I'm Jaylen Brown, what you're most upset about is, I was just your best player in the NBA Finals, and the first thing you're trying to do before I've even slammed down to touch the bottom of my pool is trade me? You're going to trade me now? Like, after this, after it seemed like we've taken this step as a team? I think when you're talking about Perk saying that the trust has been broken, he's not talking about us. He's not talking about Twitter fans. He's talking about Brad Stevens and maybe Ime Udoka as well. So I think for Jaylen Brown, it's about mending those fences internally. And Amina, I don't think necessarily that Brad Stevens is calling Brown and saying, hey, just so you know, we might trade you for KD. I don't know that conversation happens.
I think also kind of what ties into it is the fact that, you know, it's not more so about, you know, them having that conversation behind the scenes. I think it's more so that he's just, you know, he's aware of what's happening. He knows that his name is going to be thrown into those conversations. Like, who else do you trade, Tomase? Like, think about it on the team. Like, you think they're trading away Jason Tatum? His name is not going to be in that conversation. Jaylen Brown, no matter who it is, if it's another all-star or another big player that wants to come to Boston or is in trade talks, Jaylen Brown's name is always going to be in that conversation. So I understand maybe him feeling, if that is the case, him feeling disrespected by the organization. But there's no way on this earth that he doesn't understand that his name is always going to come up in these types of situations.
But I think, Tomase, to your point, maybe he doesn't want it to, right? Like, I think that, and this is part of why I'm not sure that Jaylen Brown will ever be entirely happy here, is he wants to be in the same conversation as Jason Tatum. He wants to be seen as an untouchable. He thinks he's an untouchable. And personally, I just don't know that he is. I don't know that he is. And maybe he does turn out to be a better player than Jaylen Brown. He certainly played, or Jason Tatum, if Jaylen Brown turns out to be a better player than Jason Tatum, he certainly played better than him in the finals. But overall, Tomase, even you have to agree that he shouldn't be untouchable.
No, I don't think he's untouchable, but it's one thing to say, we're going to trade you 3 years ago for Anthony Davis or Kawhi Leonard or whatever, before you have established yourself as the number 2 guy on a finals team. I think at some point, Jaylen Brown is allowed to say, haven't I done enough? Can't you trade somebody else? Like, I don't agree with that he has to be the first guy for every player that becomes available. Jaylen Brown's the guy you have to trade out. I'd be unhappy about that if I were him too.
But it's not every player, to be fair, to put a bow on this.
It's good players.
It's Kevin Durant, I mean, it's not like they're talking about going and getting, had they trade, it's, for a Dennis Schroeder or
rotational guy.
Right, yeah, like a Derek White. They're not like, oh, we're going to trade away Jaylen Brown and get Derek White. They're trying to trade him away to get a generational player.